Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got 10 games to choose from. Weird stuff going on in these slates. We don't know who's playing all the time. Some guys are in and out. Make sure you're staying on those lineup changes all over the place, definitely on thelines.com as well. We're going to dive into the Phoenix Suns and Minnesota Timberwolves in this game. We've also got another game video and our player props up for you, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Also head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content up there for you and our odds finder tool that you can use to make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all these bets that are giving us these books, rather, that are giving us bets in the NBA this season. Nate, let's jump through this 10-game slate here and then talk about the Suns and T-Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, some weird stuff, but also just some teams, padding their position at this point, including the Bucks, who are minus 12 at Indy. It's front end of a back-to-back. They play Boston tomorrow. Dallas is plus 4 at Philly. We wanted to talk that game, but can't touch it because apparently Embiid and Harden are not reliable to play in games that matter. Rockets are plus 11 at the Nets. I don't really trust the Nets to cover an 11-point spread, but we're not going to talk about that one because it's boring as hell. Heat plus 5 at Knicks. That's a good one to talk once we know who might actually play for the Heat. Jazz minus 6 at Spurs. Lakers are minus 2.5 in a rematch at the Bulls. Pistons plus 11 at the Thunder. Then we get into the last two games, which we will talk here. Clippers are plus 4 at Memphis, total of 233. The Wolves are plus 5 at the Suns here, which is the game we're looking at with Kevin Durant expected to play. And then I missed one. Yeah, Kings minus 14 at the tanking Blazers. But yeah, KD is back, expected to go as long as there's not a setback. And no, don't make any jokes about him slipping again in warmups. He's going to take it real easy. As Charles Barkley said, I never did warmups. None at all. But yeah, I mean, with him out there, it was a 3-game sample size, and the Suns look like absolute juggernauts, scoring 120 a game, 138 offensive rating in their second two against the Bulls and Mavs. Granted, it was the no defense Mavs, but I mean, it's 16 threes at 40%. Devin Booker thriving alongside KD, really just like eating off the weak side because teams have to load up on Kevin Durant. And you don't necessarily expect him to come back and be gunning like he was in that debut against Charlotte, but just his presence is just going to open things up for Booker and Paul, who have sort of righted the ship without him, right? Beating a shorthanded Sixers team and a Jazz team to snap that skid, showcasing some pretty good offense. Booker has been very productive in his last 5 against Minnesota, 27 points at a 126 rating, plus 66. And the Suns won all 5 of those games. And then, yeah, his 3 with Durant out there, 36 points per game on a 141 offensive rating. Like I said, thriving. Jaden McDaniels is a great individual defender who will probably be on Durant, but the Suns just have guys that can get theirs going. I'm looking at Chris Paul matching up against Mike Conley. It's probably the rare time that CP3 might be the younger, fresher point guard out there. So he might be able to score a little more than expected. He's definitely going to be facilitating. And what you saw in these 3 games is the Suns settling into their roles really quickly and really impressively with Ayton, double-double machine, Paul just diming up, and Booker being the main option with KD just being like, I can fit in wherever, and just destroying 3 teams. So, I mean, minus 5 is not a ton. This actually opened minus 6. I'm surprised anybody's betting on the Wolves, who are just wildly inconsistent. Like, I want to look at the over. I would lean over, but I cannot trust Minnesota. Like, they're either way the hell under or way the hell over right now. They're just like fluctuating between how they were last year and this year. And even if you look at the 2 games where they got Cat in the lineup, massive high scoring game with Atlanta and then a low scoring win against the Warriors, in which, I don't know, you can talk about that one. Did they get lucky? What happened? But they were able to hold them in check. And look, they had lost 6 straight against Phoenix before getting a win with no CP3 and Book when everybody was getting the Suns. And the Suns, even with their backups, scored 41 in the fourth quarter there, shot 61% from 3 against this Wolves team. They're going to be a much better fourth quarter team than the Wolves. And Here's the thing. I mean, how is Minnesota scoring, especially with Cat in there? They're going to be attacking the paint even more. They're already getting the sixth highest percentage of paint points in March. Phoenix is third denying paint points in March. And most of that obviously is without Durant. Now he's in an excellent defender down there at that position, can handle Cat. And I think once you see a larger sample size of Cat playing alongside Gobert, which we saw early in the season, it was really ugly. It was really a struggle for them to score at times. And, not playing Atlanta now, I don't know if they can score. I certainly don't think they can score with this Suns team. So I'm leaning towards Suns to cover and probably get their team total, but I don't trust the Wolves to come along.
Yeah, it's so much variance with the Timberwolves. I mean, I had a thought yesterday where I was writing actually about the Sacramento Kings for the lines, and I was looking at that being like, this is one of the few teams in the West that, I mean, the question mark is like, oh, they're young and whatever. My main point is I was going through the other teams in the West and just going through each of the problems that they have. And when you look at the Suns, I was like, if KD stays healthy, let me just see what these odds are for them to win the championship right now. And they're sitting at plus 220 for them to make it out of the West and just win that. And then if you want them to be the champion, they're sitting at the third best odds and the best in the West, obviously, at plus 450. And this is all dependent on whether or not Kevin Durant just stays healthy, right? Like, can Durant stay healthy? And then the Suns are the favorite to come out of the West based on three games that we've seen with them. And I think there's some legitimacy to, even though it's such a small sample size, you can kind of bank on what we saw with that Kevin Durant 3-game span because of the impact that it had on the rest of the team. It's not just KD came in, dropped 40, showed everyone that he can score on anyone, and It's like, no, they already have Devin Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. So can you just come in and kind of be the equivalent of Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges and Torrey Craig all in one player and also be like a really good shot blocker? And the answer is yes, he can. He can be all three of those players on offense, and then he can basically do everything that they do on defense plus block shots and protect the rim better than any of those guys. So with all that said, like the impact on Booker, especially on offense on that side of the ball, is like it's wild, right? I mean, remember that clip of Book playing in summer league and not wanting to get double teamed because he hates it. He's never going to get double teamed again. There's no way to double team him and Kevin Durant and then leave DeAndre Ayton and or Chris Paul with like one or nobody guarding them. It doesn't work. So that's what he did when he came to the Warriors. That's what he's going to do now is the way he spreads out the offense and the types of points that they're getting. Those assists numbers for the Suns with him in there are awesome. They're bananas, and the teams that he was playing in those situations were teams that actually limit assists pretty well, including the Chicago Bulls. So I think, for the Suns, we know what we're getting, and I do like to talk about their team total. I know Minnesota's been pretty good on defense here and there, but like you said, there's not much trend to really bank on in terms of where they're playing and where they're giving up points versus not giving up points. Like you were saying, that that game against the Hawks was a home game, went 124-125. And then the next game is the Warriors. Neither team gets to 100 in Golden State. And then they're playing at the Kings. And obviously that one goes back to 234. But it's like the road and home variance isn't really there. The Warriors played in a game that was 241 at home last night, right? So that 99-96 game they just played at home versus these T-Wolves, like that's an anomaly as well. Don't tell me the Timberwolves are that much better at defense right now, than who Golden State played last night. So at this point, I'm really considering Phoenix pretty strongly here. I think they're going to come out with something to play. -5 is right about where I would put it. It's pretty fair. But I do think if you're talking about down the stretch, like you said as well, Phoenix being able to stop what Minnesota does, especially in the clutch, stopping those fast break points, stopping those points in the paint. If you can do that, which Phoenix has done really well, as you mentioned, specifically in March, they've done that really well. They are going to need to get back on defense a little bit more as they are giving up fast break points, and that's going to be huge in this one. But I think also like the fast break points come off of points off of turnovers and things of that nature. And if you're getting a few less minutes, right? If there's no Noel and no Prince, that's two guys that are playing in transition. Those are two versatile wings that play really well on both sides of the floor versus Cat, who, say what you will about his defense, it's not really going to really stop too many people, and it's also not his game to necessarily get out and fast break, right? So like this is going to be a little bit less of that. T-Wolves able to kind of get the points that they want the way that they normally get them. So the total does scare me because I don't know how to bet on a team that has so much variance like these T-Wolves, but I do know the Suns are going to score, and if the T-Wolves don't come along for the ride, then I'm not as comfortable with that over.
Yeah, when it's hard to score transition points when you're taking the ball out of the basket, when the other team's scoring 138 points per 100 possessions.
Right.
So, I mean, that'll definitely help the Suns. And yeah, you said the Wolves defense has not been inconsistent. It's been consistently bad. It's 120 defensive rating in their last 7 roadies. It's just that for some reason, the pace has crawled to a halt in that Kings game, which you said hit 234. For some reason, they're at a 94 pace, whereas they were previously at like 100 and
no De'Aaron
won
Fox.
their last.
There's no De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. So, I mean, for what it's worth, they're 15 and 26 against the spread on equal rest. Minnesota, this is a fair shake here. I mean, I'm more looking at the defense just regressing even worse in March. Like what they've hung their hat on is, giving up some threes and free throws, but not letting you get to the rim or get your mid range going, which you think would be good against the Suns. But they're down to 18th in 2-point percentage in March. They're down to 28th in 3-point percentage. And the Suns we've seen with KD are a much more dangerous 3-point shooting team. And just they've actually been ramping up in that regard without him at home since the All-Star break, hitting 14 threes at 39%, scoring 120 with or without him. So yeah, again, if it's a team total in the 120 range, I'm on that with the Suns, but I don't think it's that complicated. Yeah, I think they're going to cover here. And certainly going to win the game. So I think it's a good parlay if you want to look at other games too, is just Suns money line right here.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's definitely enough games to parlay this money line with for them. The Wolves have been feisty for sure at different times, and when they're the underdog, like I think you briefly mentioned, they're much better, because they're coming in without those expectations, and that's when they seem to surprise us. It's those random games where we're like, oh, the Wolves, man, they looked good the last couple of games. Let's go ahead and take them as the favorite at home versus this team, or a lower dog, but not the case for them anymore. In terms of this one, I think they're pretty overmatched, and the way that Phoenix is going to score is not what Minnesota is able to stop, like you said. Yeah, consistently bad on defense for the most part, and definitely on the road. So
the Clips right now are +4 at Memphis. The total's been bet up 6 points from 227 to 233. The other game we break down, Kevin Durant and the Suns now -5 at home against the Wolves. He's expected to play. And then the tanking Blazers are +14 at home against the Kings. So this is the old home and home, right? The Clippers are going to play them again in 2 nights. Take that for what you will, but I know what to think about the Grizzlies right now. The Clips are a bit more of a jury's still out. They made one move, Ty Lue, that some say was just like an obvious overdue move, which is bench Marcus Morris. We trashed that starting lineup that he threw out there in the previous game. And Nick Batum really helped their offense. I mean, probably some unreasonable variance that they had 41 assists and went 20 for 40 from 3 to beat the Bulls, who are on a back-to-back. Memphis is also on a back-to-back here, though, for what that's worth. But Memphis is also at home, and it's a back-to-back at home, and they've won 12 straight home games, outscoring teams by 14. 122 points per game, holding teams to 12 threes. They're not going to give up much in the paint, as we know. You look at their last 9 home games, 8th in defensive rating, 8th in paint points, 4th in points off turnovers, and they're guarding the 3-point line as well. You look at their back-to-back stuff, and they do allow a few more points and a few more threes, but their scoring also dips. So they've actually gone under pretty consistently in these back-to-back situations. I don't know if you want to read too much into their recent offensive explosions with Ja out there, because they're going up against Houston in 2 of those, or 1 without him. And then they played at a 108 pace last night without Ja against Orlando, but still went under this total. I don't know how to feel about the total necessarily now that it's been bet up so much. I actually think maybe it's an opportunity to tease it higher and take the under at this point. I mean, the Clippers, their offense is not very trustworthy without Paul George, and Kawhi. His last 5 against Memphis has been meh by his standards. It's a 119 offensive rating. He's -14 in those games. They had lost 5 straight against the Grizz without Kawhi. They did then just win an extremely high-scoring game at LAC, which is another reason that we're seeing this total be bet up so much, right? But without Paul George, like the Clippers on the road, I mean, since the All-Star break, they are 1-3. The win is at Portland, so that doesn't even really count. And in that span, giving up the 10th most paint points, the second most points off turnovers, which is death against Memphis. They're giving up 120 points per game. They're also giving up the 4th most free throws and the 9th most offensive rebounds. The one thing they're doing is limiting 3-pointers, and that's not Memphis's game, right? I mean, especially with Ja out there, they're going to be attacking. So I like the Grizz here at just -4. I'm not really buying that the Clippers are completely on track just because they got that one game. Things were looking pretty ugly for them without PG, and I just think Memphis is hitting their stride now with Ja back in the lineup.
Yeah, that game versus the Bulls was for sure an anomaly. Let's be super clear about that. That moving forward, I don't know if you want to rely on Nick Batum going 8 for 10 from 3. I don't think you want to do that. That's the entirety of his points that he scored. God bless him, Viva la France and all that, but like that ain't gonna keep happening. So Eric Gordon, maybe that's more likely to keep happening. I mean, he had 28 minutes, and he and Batum are going to probably continue to get 55 combined minutes between Gordon and Batum. It seems like they're coming in. You saw a bit more Bones Highland as well in that last game. And I mean, they needed all 13 of his points as well. I mean, not necessarily needed them, but I think they wanted to see what he could do. He got 23 minutes versus the 16 that he's been averaging since he came to the team. But yeah, that's not what you want to rely on. Like I said, I mean, Eric Gordon, like maybe you can rely on that a bit more. A 5 for 9 from 3, I'm not going to rely on. But I think the overarching minutes that he gives you, the overarching benefits of having Eric Gordon on the floor, it's almost like we saw that happening before Russ came and then just took all those minutes from Terrence Mann and Eric Gordon when they were playing super well together. Now they're relying on Russ as well. He's still getting those minutes, and that'll keep happening tonight. But getting away from the Clippers, I'm just trying to make the point here that who the hell knows the 3 games that they played since Paul G, I guess that works. Paul George went out. It's just weirdness. There's no consistency to what we're seeing. Like you said, the lineup changes. Mook's pretty much benched at this point. He's out with PG. So we don't, and Norman Powell's questionable. So like we're probably going to get a lot of the same guys that we just saw in the Chicago game. But this Memphis team is a lot different. And if Ja's playing in this one, 4.5, I love it. I was hitting it before, honestly, Ja got out there. The Bulls were in a weird, wonky game. Like we said, I thought we were going to be able to see more from them, and they just didn't have it that game on the second leg of that back-to-back. But this Memphis team, I'm not worried about on the second leg because Ja sat for this reason. Like they didn't really need him against Orlando. They almost blew it, but they had a 20-point lead at one point in that game, which is never safe in the NBA anymore, as we saw with those Warriors last night. But with Ja in this one, I mean, look, last season they were 20-5 without him. This season 11-8. It's not the same necessarily. The offensive rating, they still need him. I'm not necessarily impressed by the 7-game win streak because of the teams that they beat and the Luka-less Mavs and things like that. The Warriors on the road are the Pistons we've established, so that doesn't really count either. I think that for Memphis, it's not necessarily impressive what they've done in the last 7 games, although they needed them and they've firmly put themselves back in second place. So I want to give them enough flowers to make clear, they're the second best team in the West right now. But it's been a lot of offense and a little bit less defense than, we've been expecting. They've been guarding the perimeter well. They've been guarding, even 2-pointers decently well. But it feels like teams just, we're kind of missing against them, to be honest, and not really going down low as much, but getting a lot of points off of offensive rebounds, second chance points. I was thinking about Zubac tonight because of the fact that he's got some lower props because of the fact that he's played really poorly against Memphis. And historically, Memphis has been incredible at guarding centers. But in the last 15 games, since, Steven Adams went down a little bit before that, they're bad. They're one of the worst teams at guarding centers. They're giving up a ton of second chance points. They've gone all the way down from being the 4th best team at limiting points in the paint to 13th. So if Zoo gets the minutes, I think he can have his way with Xavier Tillman, to be honest. Even when Jaren Jackson Jr. is out there right now with Xavier Tillman, that 2-man lineup is allowing 119 defensive rating when they're on the floor together. So there's probably an opportunity for some points in general. That's why it got bet up so quickly, as people were like, well, if Ja plays at all, this game's going over the 227 that it originally was at. And I would buy that, but at the same time, I'm just way more comfortable with this Memphis team when Ja's in there, and I think he's right now. now, right? Mentally and all that kind of stuff. Like he's put everything behind him. I just trust them so much more right now as a team that has been streaking versus this Clippers team that, like, yeah, they looked good against the Bulls and Kawhi looked good against the Thunder, but like I'm still not putting quite as much stock in those games against as much as the second best team in the West with this Grizzlies squad.
You said Norm Powell's upgraded to questionable tonight. That's actually big news. That makes me reverse my take on the total. Then I will take the over if Norman Powell is playing. That will fix a lot of what's wrong with the Clippers offense, mainly Russell Westbrook trying to score the basketball and not just be a playmaker. Norm was huge for this team before he went down with kind of a mysterious injury. I think he's missed like 12 straight. So if they get him back in there, I think that'll help the pace. I mean, you've already looked at these teams playing at 102.6 in their last 3 meetings. Memphis scoring 129 in those games. They will continue to get theirs down low. As I said, all these road struggles from the Clippers just not even bringing their defense. They're 23-14 to the over on the road, 11-6 as road dogs, and also go over at 6.5 points per game when they have a rest advantage. You look at these 4 road games recently. What the 2 times they played an elite offense at Denver and Sac, those games totaled over 255. So, I mean, there's definitely an opportunity for Memphis to drag this over on their own, and for the Clips to just like let go of the rope and let them score 135, but then, get their own, because you got guys like Powell and Bones Highland who are just buckets off the bench. So I do like the over if you can find out if Norman Powell's actually going to play. Obviously, this organization is not the most trustworthy when it comes to the injury report, but we shall see.
Stay on it, man. I mean, I've been racking my brain since last night when I was looking at all these things and trying to find some correlation, some stat, whatever. And it's like the end of the season, and it's just 10 games too long because it's just so much harder to figure out what's going on in these ones. And not even just because it's like, who's going to try? It's like, who's going to play? I mean, that everything was ruined the other day, right? With that Joel Embiid random out, and then Luka comes back, even though, because he has his technical rescinded. Like, you just got to stay up on the news as you're making these bets and stay ahead of things as much as you can. But also, there's nothing wrong with waiting to know who's going to actually play in these games, right? So, for example, just real quick, Tyrese Maxey and the 76ers the other day, he was out. We didn't know Joel was out. Then all of a sudden, Joel's in. The books put out the Maxey stats and they try to get them back real quick. But if you can get to those Maxey props before they take them down once the Embiid news comes out, right? If you can stay on top of those type of injury alerts, maybe follow Woj and Shams and all that kind of stuff, then it's going to be super helpful down the stretch here in the NBA. So, Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first NBA play up prop for tonight. Is LeBron James for sure playing?
Oh, yeah, he's playing. And my question to you is, WWJD, what would Jordan do in this situation after Patrick Beverley scored on him and then gave him the too short sign? LeBron should, if he doesn't come out and make the Bulls like absolutely grind them into the dust with his will, I don't even know what to say. He should be ashamed of himself. I mean, he eased his way back in, 30 minutes off the bench on Sunday. I think he's probably going to start today, which is a much bigger difference. And look, as good as the Bulls have been defensively, they are vulnerable to playmakers. 5th most assists per game allowed in March, 6th most assists to power forwards in their last 15 games. So Bron is plus 105 to get 6 dimes. He only had 3 in that last one, but you look at his previous 5 against the Eastern Conference, 9.2 assists, 31 points. His previous 8 roadies before he got hurt, 33 points per game, along with 9 rebounds, 6.5 assists, scoring a ton of paint points. Patrick Williams, he's improved defensively, but I don't know if he's strong enough to keep LeBron out of there. Vucevic is not a rim protector. LeBron has played more minutes on the road by a long shot in 2023 as the Lakers have been just desperate for wins, and they need things from him. And look, they need to avenge this loss, and he needs to personally avenge Pat Bev's disrespect. Only 25 points is the prop because he went for 19 off the bench, but I think he can get that in sleep, and it's only minus 111 at FanDuel for the points.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Lakers, we kind of can tell when they're trying. They lost recently. Now they got to win again. They know they got to stay in this play-in tournament, even though they're trying to figure out how to handle LeBron's minutes. So I think you can expect. I mean, he got 30 in the first game back, right? If he gets 30 or more in this one, I think you got to feel pretty good about him being in there down the stretch as well. If this is going to be a closer game, which I kind of expect it to be, then I think LeBron's going to have enough minutes to get his points. And yeah, man, he's got to put Pat Bev in a coffin. Like, he has to. he has to give him the Jason Terry treatment from when he just ended Jason Terry's life as well, like 10 years ago. So I'm gonna move on here to a guy who Marvin Bagley, former King, current Piston, 24.5 points and rebounds. Total transparency, my level of confidence in this one is like half a unit, but it's only because he's barely gone over. It's about the minutes. And OKC is not good against power forwards right now. They're not good down low. I will say that there's something to be said for them allowing the third most points per game to power forwards over their last 7 games. And really in their last 7 in general, it hasn't been there for them on defense at all. Allowing 120 points per game in those last 7, and the 4th most rebounds to their opponents. So I think there's going to be some more opportunity for Bags to get those boards as well on top of all that, because in his last 4 games, he's getting the minutes. And I mean, it's full tank. It's him going in and getting, the majority of those minutes at the 4, playing 34 minutes a game, 20% usage. And averaging 19 a game and 7 boards in that time, right? So that's 26, gets you above the 24.5 if you like it. So I think it's just an opportunity for a faster paced game. The Pistons and Thunder are playing in a bit more high scoring games down the stretch, as the Pistons are just full blown tank and see what they have in their young guys, and the Thunder are their Pistons are kind of the Thunder of last year, and the Thunder are now a play in team for sure. So it's going to be not necessarily a close one, but there'll be points, and even if it's not close, Bags is going to get the minutes. So.
Look, Josh is being Charmin soft here to borrow some more Pat Bev references. This is a fine bet to make. He's played big minutes in 4 games. 3 of those, you could say, are against the toughest, most physical defenses in the Eastern Conference, in the Heat, Raptors, and Bucks. And he just got to 25 against the Bucks. I don't care who wasn't playing. Like, Bobby Portis is still tough as hell to score on. And OKC, they're playing rookie Jalen at the 4. They're playing other Jalen at the 5. These are not stoppers. They're playing at a 102.5 pace at home over the last 2 months and giving up a ton of rebounds, like you're saying. Look, I think Bagley's going to be scoring. I really hope he gets that double-double, which is plus 165 at DraftKings. And totally unrelated, hopefully gives me that player performance double I need for my fantasy championship. Let's go, Bags. Yeah, another guy who might get a double-double, though, Chris Paul tonight. And I know he hadn't scored much in his debut with KD in the lineup. And so maybe we're just assuming he's going to take a back seat again. He only had 2 points on a minimal usage in that first one. The next 2, he had 11 points, 8.5 assists in blowout wins. But I think the matchup allows for him to score here. I mean, it's against Mike Conley, who's, his age. It's a fair fight for once. In his last 3 against Conley and the Jazz, 22 points, 10 assists per game. He loves to put Gobert in that torture chamber, right, in the pick and roll. And Gobert's out there again, too. So his last 4 against Minnie without those guys, 19.5 points, 11 assists. He's a plus 20. Minnie is now allowing the 6th most points per game to point guards in their last 30. Have us a 123 defensive rating, their last 7 on the road. So the odds are interesting here. Like I said, double-double is plus 200, basically. And I think that's more appealing than the 10 assists at plus 115. He's getting crazy negative odds to get 9 assists. So I think you can go one more up here, despite Minnesota's pretty good numbers against assists. But 12.5 points or 21.5 points assists, however you want to shake it here, I would put the points and assists together, minus 105, and then I would look at a double-double, just sprinkling some money on there because of the good return.
Yeah. No, I mean, you get a good return on the assist, too, so it's a great call. In general, I think CP3's happy to be just handing the ball out to guys. He knows he doesn't have to score now. He's got 2 of, if not the 2 best wing scorers in the league on his team. So I think he's going to be just fine diming those out. Shout out Conley, by the way. I really like what he's done since he came to Minnesota, kind of resurging his career that was falling off big time in Utah. There's enough of him left to be a serviceable point guard if this team gets in the playoffs, but not going to be a great matchup for stopping CP3 from just getting his assists off in this one. So yeah, I love the assists in that one. Let's finish it off with a different point guard, Drew Holiday. this is not nearly as important game for the Bucks as what they're going to play against the Celtics, where they can essentially wrap up the 1 seed with a win tomorrow on the second leg of a back-to-back. But this first one versus Indy, it's a pretty good matchup for Drew, right? Minus 111 for the points. That's on FanDuel if you want to go over 16.5 points. If you want to throw the assists in there, it's 24.5 with the points and assists. So I do like the points alone. I think, Giannis questionable, Middleton probably not playing, right? All that stuff. So not necessarily worried about, I guess Giannis might play, but even if he does, they need to win tomorrow. And they've been sitting guys in games that they know they can win. The Pacers have already made clear they're tanking, not going to see any Turner or what's his name? Tyrese Halliburton. Buddy Hield has been out forever as well. So, this is already a bad defensive team in Indiana, and they're just trying to see what they have left. And a lot of those young guys actually have been playing well and scoring and playing in high scoring games, like the Nemhards of the world. So, basically for Drew, the reason I like this is he's the guy that carries the offense in these situations, and they know that they can rely on him to be the adult in the room when they don't really have anybody else that they're playing, and they want to save Giannis, who is much more susceptible to getting injured in games, which is why you would sit him because of the way he plays versus Drew. And he's had a really good time playing against these Pacers, Mr. Holiday there. In his last 7 versus Indy, 22.5 points a game with about 11 assists in that time. And really over the last 3 seasons, you go all the way back, 25 a game, 10 assists, and about a 24.5% usage rate. So I think, the usage that he's going to get tonight, he's got a little bit of a higher usage rate on the road. He gets a little bit more minutes per game as of late in this month of March, which is about to end, but he's been playing super well and a lot in that time, more than 32.5 minutes per game in the month of March. So I think, with him in this position and them needing to rely on him so much, the points feel like a really fair bet in a game that probably is going to get a decent amount of them.
Yeah, I mean, that last game was extremely high scoring. And it was TJ McConnell leading the Pacers. And with Halliburton out, that's who's going to be on Drew. And McConnell is a real pesky defender who will try to pick your pocket, but he's really undersized. And Drew's not going to have much trouble taking care of the ball. That's why he's averaging 22 against Indy, right, recently, is because he can then just take advantage of his size. He's an underrated guy in terms of back to the basket game. I think they can exploit that. And like you mentioned, Giannis could use a little rest. Middleton and Ingles are both questionable as they prepare for the bigger game tomorrow night. They know they can get the Pacers if Drew carries them.
Yeah, for sure. And they got to wrap this thing up. So you can't just not play anybody and lose this game, or you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball against the Celtics, who are giving you a chance by getting blown out by the Wizards last night. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check out the other couple game videos we have up for you. And until we see you next, happy betting.